Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on mysterious and weird, true stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Case file number 742, written by Aggressive Ad 9800, The Highway Anomaly. It's been about a week and I'm still trying to wrap my head around the fact that I might have died in another timeline and just jumped to this one. Background. I was driving down PCH, a very long highway up the coast of California, at 8:15 p.m. exactly. And I know this because I called my mom to let her know I was stopping to watch the sun as it was setting because it was breathtaking. As I'm watching the sunset, I hear a car's horn blazing, and I mean it was loud, and it sounded like it was coming right at me. I turn around and see a car coming straight towards my car and myself, and then suddenly, I'm sitting on the ground. Very confused, a headache is starting to come on, but I wasn't hit. My car wasn't hit, and I'm still breathing. Obviously freaked out, I got back up and checked my phone to call my mom because this is just crazy. And then I notice it's 8:13 p.m. I checked my phone to see if I actually did call her, but there's no history of it. I shake the nerves off and decide to just get home quickly, thinking maybe that was foreshadowing an event I did not want to relive. Once I'm home, my mom asked me why I called her and just hung up. I asked what time I called. She said 8:15 p.m. There is still no history of me calling her on my phone. Am I crazy, or did I just timeline travel? Everything here seems more vibrant and colorful. I can feel more energy here as well. I'm not sure. Any guesses? Case notes for file 742. The Highway Anomaly. One note that's interesting here is you mentioned having a headache. If this was a quantum immortality event, that isn't often reported. In fact, I don't think I've ever heard someone say that they had a headache after. Apparently, transmitting our consciousness or soul across universes doesn't cause any sort of mental trauma. Now, sometimes small time events are reported. There was one story about, I think it was a pastor or a priest or something, someone in their community that was helping move furniture in someone else's place, and the furniture collapsed on them and they died. But then they rewinded back like 10 minutes and they remembered the events. It was a different universe, that was clear after the fact, with many changes between them. Time was indeed rewinded. In your case, just a few minutes. His case, I think 10 minutes or so. The more stories I read about this, the more I'm convinced that universes we can travel to when we die, they are interconnected but very close by. Again, I like to use the analogy of a highway system, where there's different exits corresponding to different cities or towns. You could go further, but maybe gas travel in interconnected, inter-universal travel is extremely expensive, and it's not something that easily happens. So because of that, we always jump to the nearest universe. And if some trickery is needed to make that work, like rewinding time in that universe slightly, or injecting your consciousness into an earlier version of the you in that universe is necessary, well, that's what happens. It seems like the case. That said, that your mom remembered you calling, but there's no call log or history. That one has me puzzled. Maybe this isn't quantum immortality. Maybe this is something new. Case file number 743. Written by Dragonborn123. Houses that come and go. At the time of the event, I was visiting with my dad and his wife. They live in a very small and very eerie town around 2 hours away from me. Most of the place is empty roads lined with trees that lead to small pockets of houses. Well, one day I decided to go for a walk and I took a route that I normally take in the fall when the leaves are turned. You have to walk down towards the beach and then take a sharp right onto an inclining road. The road is long and there is nothing on it except a small shack where a large electricity box is held. So needless to say, I wasn't expecting to see any other man-made structures. I was nearing the peak of the hill when I saw it. 2 houses next to each other. Both of them were clearly abandoned because they were boarded up and falling down. I was speechless. How had I never seen this before? They weren't small, and no trees or bushes had grown enough to cover anything up. Something didn't feel right. I don't know how to describe it other than feeling like I was looking at a mirage in a desert. I went back to my dad's house and asked him how long the houses had been there, but he was totally confused because that road has never had any houses. The next day, the three of us were out for an evening drive and I convinced my dad to go up the road so I could show him. But the houses weren't there. There wasn't even cleared land where a house could have potentially been. I know what I saw, but I can't explain how it happened other than it being a glitch. Case notes for file 743, houses that come and go. One thing I just find a bit funny is one person's eerie is another person's paradise. How you describe this place being isolated, not many people, tons of trees. That's my paradise, that's my heaven. I want that tranquil serenity out in nature. Of course with all the perks of civilization and technology, but thankfully because of Elon Musk you can get all that. Solar power is pretty affordable now. There's Starlink internet for very reliable and even quick speeds and low latency so I can still game from the middle of nowhere. That is my plan. Probably gonna move eventually to New Hampshire and just live off-grid. Seems very pleasant to me. One thing to latch onto in this story is the sensation you describe as not feeling right, as a sort of mirage, like your memory or your perception of reality was distorted. Something was there, or was causing you to see something being there, but your mind knew, even though it couldn't connect what it was, that it wasn't correct. This could be an alien event, and it doesn't necessarily mean an abduction. There could be areas where we feel off because we're seeing something that is sort of masquerading as reality, a sort of cloak, but not turning invisible. Maybe that's impossible. Instead, inducing a vision of something that isn't actually there. And it's a repeating theme where people are seeing houses that aren't there later. I've narrated at least a dozen of those stories throughout my years. So, for some reason, either the memory is induced to be of homes, or it's the mind trying to latch onto something it understands and knows, and a house is just one of those common things that is easy to induce by yourself. Now there's still the question of who's doing this. Maybe it's the government who has secret areas that they don't want people to know about, and so they cause these hallucinations to occur, and then people don't go back. Case file number 744, written by Joe PR 1985. We saw the moon explode and then reform. This happened in Sanford, Florida in 2021 by Lake Monroe at the Veteran Memorial there, which has a lot of places to sit. It was around 2 a.m. or so, and me and my friend were sitting near a lake enjoying the full moon. We were sober and we didn't do drugs at all. We spoke about all sorts of things that night, and how we tend to see a lot of crazy things in that particular location after 12 a.m. So we are sitting there, and I look up at the moon and I notice a dark spot on the full moon, and I thought it was just a random dark cloud. I pointed it out to my friend, and at this point, we were both looking up, but this dark spot on the moon started to spread, and it looked like cracks were forming. The moon was cracking, and big pieces of the moon started to separate from it. We were both staring in disbelief, trying to make sense of what was happening. It felt like it should not be happening. It felt wrong, like a glitch. We were not scared though, just confused. It felt off and very strange because the magnitude of what was happening never hit us. We keep looking up and the moon was completely fractured and separated all within 4 minutes or so. As we keep looking up, we see everything that happened being put in reverse, just like if someone had hit a reverse button to all that had happened. We were seeing the moon get put back together in real time. All this happened within 2 minutes, so the whole ordeal only took about 6 to 7 minutes or so. After this happened, we looked at each other and came to the conclusion that we had just witnessed a glitch in the Matrix, and we were the only ones that saw it. No one online in our area was talking about it. And to this day, that was the most insane thing I've ever seen. And now looking back at it, I have no idea what we did after that whole ordeal. It's like it's veiled or blocked from our memory. My friend feels the same way. I wonder if anyone else saw it. Case notes for file 744, We saw the moon explode and then reform. So again, this is a perception glitch, I think. Since no one else saw it, it was just you and your friend. Something in the local environment there made you both witness something that's seemingly and utterly impossible. The amount of energy required to fracture the moon is indescribable. We could launch every nuclear weapon we have and it would barely make a dent. The moon is still gigantic, trillions and trillions and trillions of kilograms. And of course, even if something could destroy it, it couldn't possibly reverse time in a localized area to reform it. That's some Dragon Ball Super Whis angel level powers, and I don't think anyone has that, not even hyper advanced aliens. So I wonder if you had any sort of time issues after. Of course, it's hard to know if you lost, 6 minutes or 7 minutes. That's not really enough time to notice much. And while this isn't evidence of aliens, I would say, it's often the case where memories are warped because we have built-in self-defense mechanisms against trauma. If something truly terrible happens to us, often we'll suppress the memory. However, the mind is weird. It doesn't speak to itself in the way we think it does. Different factions vying for power in your mind. That's the best way I could describe it. And some of those want to know what the hell's going on. It's kind of like Data in that one episode where the whole crew had lost their memory, and this was because of an alien civilization. They discovered them, they weren't supposed to. And the aliens in this case were xenophobic. They didn't want anything to do with anyone else, even people knowing of their existence. So, Data wasn't affected by the memory wipe, and I'm gonna hide all evidence that we ever were here. But the whole crew, they were seeing signs that things aren't adding up. Okay, the clock on the ship isn't corresponding with how much time has passed, etc. So they all investigate. That's our brains picking apart at these memories that don't make sense. They're there, but they're not supposed to be there. They're not properly formed. They don't belong. They're artificial.